What's the state of our nation? If you watched President Obama's recent address to Congress and the nation, it was an uneven report. For some interest, what Obama said was really good news. Stock market is up, corporate profits are at an all-time high, troops serving in Afghanistan are set to come home in larger numbers, and even the unemployment rate signals that we're beyond the staggeringly high numbers that we saw during the Great Recession. However, one need only scratch the surface to see that while the areas that I highlighted have some positive changes in the economy, many Americans are still making far less than they did a decade or two ago. Good paying jobs are rare, and the troops are still involved in a deadly conflict. With me on Truthout Interviews to talk about the state of our nation is Truthout's senior editor and lead columnist, William Rivers Pitt. Hey, Will, welcome back to Truthout Interviews.
So glad to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, your piece on Truthout, your op-ed piece, was on the reaction to the State of the Union speech. It was entitled, "The Sugar Makes the Poison Taste Sweet." And one of the poisons you allude to is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, for those who don't know, what exactly is it?
It has been described by a number of people as NAFTA on steroids. It is a trade partnership dealing with a large swath of the Asia-Pacific community that has been negotiated in secret. The environmental concerns, the issues regarding labor rights. WikiLeaks has managed to expose, to leak out a few of the key elements of this thing. Corporations can sue countries if they believe that their sales rights are being violated or abrogated. They can sue in the special court that's been set up to deal with the specific concerns of countries involved in these trade negotiations. It's scary.
You remember when Ross Perot said about NAFTA, the giant sucking sound? If NAFTA gets approved, you're going to hear that giant sucking sound, which is all the jobs and money going out of the country to Mexico.
Mexico, Micronesia. I mean, God help me for saying that Ross Perot, had anything smart to say, but in this particular instance, he was spot on. The NAFTA trade deal just eviscerated our industrial base and sent those jobs off to places where people make pennies an hour. It was the line from what the show The West Wing. Political prisoners are going to be sewing soccer balls with their teeth.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership is alluded to, or at least not really talked about, because he didn't really talk about it as that. He did not say the words. He did not say the words Trans-Pacific Partnership. He said we want to expand our trade and we're going to create jobs. It's a lie. That was the thing I was going to pick up on, was that there was a lot of talk about jobs, right? In the State of the Union, how
it's a political speech. There has to be a lot of talk about jobs.
Right. And then the Trans-Pacific Partnership will create jobs, but not necessarily for Americans, and it will create very low-paying jobs.
It will create jobs for the corporations that are interested in having this deal go through. Whether the fact that those jobs are not within the borders of the United States of America is, not one damn is given by these people, because they are transnational corporations. There's no loyalty to country here. It's loyalty to the bottom line. It's loyalty to finding the cheapest wage slaves they can get their hands on. And because we have standards here, or I like to think we do. We are clinging desperately to the idea that you should be paid a living wage for doing a job. In other parts of the world, where labor is much, much, much cheaper, where $5 a week actually, puts food on the table for someone to a degree, we are in a situation in this country where the idea of upward mobility, the idea of being able to do for your children better than was done for you, that we can all step up, that if you get an education, you can get a job. It's becoming a quaint notion. If this happens, I swear to God, if this happens, it almost feels like the final nail in the coffin. Like, it just, go get your minimum wage job and be thankful for what you get, and don't say anything about management or don't say anything about the company, because you might lose the job or the job might leave. They're trying to turn the entire country into the state of West Virginia. I'm happy that Senator Reid and a number of other people in Congress, Republicans and Democrats, there's a bipartisan pushback happening against at least the fast track authority, which he's looking for to get this thing through. So that gives me hope. We'll see.
We'll see. And you touched on the environment, and that's really my next question. And on the environment, it's kind of unclear where the president stands on the Keystone Pipeline. He hasn't come out officially and said anything. He could allude to things like he did in the speech, but it is clear where he stands on fracking, which is this fracturing the rock to extract natural gas.
The line that I used in my article was that the president of the United States talked like an Occupy protester when discussing income inequality, while pushing the Trans-Pacific Partnership and this free market nonsense, the failed religion of free market economics. He sounded like a Greenpeace activist when he talked about protecting the environment while pushing fracking, which is one of the most tremendously pollutive practices to gain fossil fuels that's out there. The State Department just on Friday in their news dump said that they didn't have any particular environmental concerns with this, in the words of Charlie Pierce, this death funnel running across America's breadbasket and over our most important aquifer to deliver the foulest oil. I mean, oil is dirty. This stuff is incredibly dirty. It's incredibly dirty to harvest. It's incredibly dirty to transport. It's incredibly dirty to burn. And he wants to run it. The XL people want to run it right down the center of the country over where we grow our food and get our drinking water. It's going to be up to people to stop it. There are all sorts of landowners in Texas. This eminent domain thing. They're trying to eminent domain this thing from the top of the country to the bottom. And there are all these landowners who are fighting it. And I appreciate that. It's going to take people to stop this thing, because I really do think this guy is talking out of both sides of his mouth. He's talking about income inequality while pushing a job-killing trade bill. He is talking about environmental protections while pushing the most toxic pipeline I've ever even heard of.
I spoke with Eleanor Bader. She's a writer for Truthout as well. And we talked about the Keystone Pipeline and the pushback that is happening among, as you put it, these landowners. She's talking about a very powerful movement, or at least a grassroots movement in Nebraska. And what I think I'm going to do on this video is actually put a link onto it so people can watch that video as well, since it's something that is really, some people say it's a symbol of the environmental movements, push against fossil fuels, but you highlight pretty clearly that tar sands oil is some of the dirtiest, foulest oil. It is going to increase the amount of carbon in the environment by, some say, up to 17%.
If you go for full selfish and say, well, yeah, but it's our oil, we can use it, we can do it. This isn't for us. This oil is it's going down to Louisiana, to the New Orleans port, to get shipped to the rest of the world. It's going to China so they can make even more pollution that comes across the Pacific Ocean and winds up rained on California.
Because China has invested heavily in the Keystone Pipeline, right?
Yeah, well, it's because their economy is exploding. They're incredibly greedy for oil. They have nothing in the way of the EPA. I mean, have you seen the pictures out of China recently with the unbelievable? And then we're going to send them tar sands oil. So it's a paycheck for some people that we'll never meet, running over where we get our food and where we get our water.
And finally, I'm really gonna make your head explode in this last question, and because it seemed to on the article or the op-ed piece that you wrote, and it's on Afghanistan. The president asked Corey Remsburg to stand up. He got an incredibly long-standing ovation in the gallery, and then the president said sometimes our democracy, isn't easy. Sometimes we stumble, sometimes we make mistakes. And it's that last line, sometimes we make mistakes, that really sets you off in that in opinion piece.
Well, to be fair, it wasn't sometimes we make mistakes. It was, but then we put we put it aside and put our shoulder to the wheel. That's what made me lose my mind. He can't, Corey Remsburg can't put it aside. We have already, in the last 5 years, put aside the serial crimes of the previous administration. Crimes, not transgressions, not problems, not errors. Crimes. We put them aside. Crimes by Wall Street and the banks. Crimes, actual crimes. We've put them aside. It is the bread and butter of these people, these political hacks who do not have the courage to take these things head on, to say, well, we're not going to talk about the past. We're going to talk about the future. If you don't deal with these things that happened, they're going to happen again and again and again and again. What happened to Corey Remsburg was a crime. What happened to this economy was a crime. You say what you want about the Catholic Church, and there's plenty to say, but there's something to be said for the confessional, where you go in and you confess your crimes. You speak them out loud. You say, this happened, and I'm sorry. And you get told to say however many Hail Marys and do whatever spiritual push-ups are required and all the rest of it. But you say it out loud. You speak the words. At a minimum, people like Corey Remsburg are owed that. We're all owed that.
The president talks a lot about when he was running in 2008, the hope and change. And a lot of people projected a lot of hope that he would change things for the better in the country. I
mean, I'm not necessarily throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. I mean, my wife has a pre-existing condition, and the ACA makes sure that she can have health care for the rest of her life, or health insurance for the rest of her life. That puts him in the pantheon as far as I'm concerned. The man has done a lot of good in the face of unbelievable opposition.
And hatred.
And flat out hatred. But there's no doubt about it. I mean, you sit here, you wouldn't believe the flack I'm getting online. You sit here and you say these things about the president. Everybody knows that these wars were crazy. Everybody knows that poor guy with his dented head and his messed up life because of the 10 deployments. Everybody knows that was wrong. But when you don't say it out, when you say it out loud, everyone agrees. It's amazing what happens when you speak the truth out loud. When you sugarcoat it, you turn it into a pep rally, you're just making sure that it's going to happen again.
You're right. It is at a point where Obama doesn't have to worry about re-election anymore. Maybe he's worried about his legacy. I don't know.
Well, he's worried about the 2014 election, to be sure. I'm waiting for the first liberal president to actually be liberal. Throw the damn dice. If they're going to paint you with that, double down. Get it done. Do your job. Say the words and see what happens. You'll be amazed. I think he'd be amazed if he actually practiced what he preached.
Yeah, I mean, here's a president coming in at a transformative moment. We were at the Great Recession was the worst recession any of us remember, unless you went through the Great Depression. For people that are older now, they were young children or at the time. But for you, for me, for everyone that experienced it, it's still lingering. It's a horrible, horrible thing that we've gone through. And here is his opportunity to be very transformative, and he dropped the ball.
You're absolutely right. It's not just the recession. It was the wars. It was the paranoia. It was the 8 years, the cluster that was the Bush administration. It was a moment. It was a moment to seize, and they've just sort of skated. I've had a theory for a long time and the current president has really kind of underscored it for me. There's a certain level of political power at which if you're going to reach that level of power, you have to sign your name on a number of really rotten dotted lines. You owe your position to a number of people, all of whom can write checks with 15 zeros at the end of it. I think it severely hamstrings your ability to actually swing for the fences. You are beholden to more than the American people in your conscience.
Absolutely. And I think that the other thing is that when Obama was elected and he started to assemble his cabinet, when he started appointing a lot of Clinton holdovers, or at least alumni, to the cabinet, I realized that the game was over, because I knew they were going to take him that, quote, third way and say, look, if you want to win re-election, you got to do it like we did. Look at our track record with the Clinton administration. Listen to us. So he might have had, if he had a stronger liberal cabinet, the ability to swing for the fences, to just go for it. But instead, he played it safe, and he hired people around him to encircle him that would tell him or advise him very much like how Bill Clinton was advised. Not to say that Bill Clinton was this big liberal, but he certainly had more liberal tendencies, but he had also very conservative tendencies too.
Bill Clinton's first 2 years, he tried to be, and he got broken across the knee of his failed healthcare thing, and then he brought the triangulators in, and it was off to the races. But that's, we're not gonna talk about old history again. We're gonna move forward.
It's right. Well, Will, it's always a treat to talk to you. I want to thank you so much for being on Truthout Interviews.
It's been a pleasure. I'm really glad to see you again, man.
You too. William Rivers Pitt is the senior editor and lead columnist at Truthout and at BuzzFlash at Truthout, and you can read his writings on those two sites. Thanks for watching Truthout Interviews. I'm Ted Asregadoo. See you next time.